from here, blue skies from gray. Can you tell a green feeling from a cold? I basically wasn't good at almost anything else. And in high school, actually, see, just before high school, my dad was made redundant and he got a big fancy keyboard to try and teach himself music. But I was quite good at it, and I used to really like film music, and I would like hear a song and then be like, do-do-do-do, and then work it out. Actually, I remember working out The Godfather. That was the first song I ever worked out how to play. It's easy with busking because there's like absolutely no barrier. So like, which is sometimes bad. You get like people who are like fucked and they're just like slavering all over you, like, oh, I love you, man, this song's amazing. That's not great. But the fact that there's no barrier means that people just come and tell you what they want. They tell you what they like. They tell if they like what you've done. They tell you if they don't like what you've done. And it's just good feedback constantly, which is, I think, is quite helpful to grow like the skills that you want to get, you know. There goes my hero, watching my hero. There goes my hero, solidarity. I got some dark stories. I got a funny story. This guy had like a little crowd. It was like maybe midnight, like maybe 20 people, and it was like about to launch into the chorus of Don't Look Back in Anger, and this guy just came out the side and kicked the mic stand right over, like right to the ground, and I was like, all right, well that's the end of that song. But his pal was like, Steve, what the fuck you doing? And the guy that kicked the thing down was like, I don't know. He just didn't know what he was doing. Meanwhile, two lassies had picked up the mic stand and were like, there you go. The big guy then goes, no, puts it back on the ground and goes, Steve's gonna pick it up. And Steve's just like, So eventually, the lassies pick it up again, he fucking slams it back down to the ground, and eventually the guy picks it up and is like, sorry. I had a guy, this is like 1 a.m, this guy came up to me and he's like, mate, you day brown? And I was like, no, man, I don't. But then he gets out a wee bag of heroin anyway and starts putting it on his hand, snorts up, and I'm like, okay. And he's stuck with me for like a full hour. And I start doing golden brown, and he goes, yes, mate. And he gets the bag of heroin, right, puts it, the whole thing to his nose, takes all of it, and I'm like, is he gonna die now, or what the fuck is, like, but he actually got more sober, and yeah, the Glasgow is wild. It is wild. And if you're the only one sober, you see, like, I can't describe it, man, it's just insane. I read the news today, about a lucky man who made the grade. Although the news was rather sad. Sometimes you're just like, I actually do not want to do this because it's so hardcore sometimes. But you just have to. It was easier back before COVID because it was my only income. I wasn't on the dole or anything. Every penny I got was just from those 2 days for 6 years. So like, I had to kind of do it. And I guess that was kind of a bit of a motivating factor, but also I kind of loved the chaos of it. Like, it was really chaotic and it was kind of fun, and you get so many stories out of it, and I don't know. But it is that double-edged sword where you're like, this is hardcore. I guess it was like after a month of doing it, of doing the night busking and realising I don't need to sign on. Like, it was so much money. It was like, that was like such a good... That was such a good time. It was just... Down by the grocery store, I can see hot the Belgian bees. Every single pleasantry, oh, it's such a joy to me. And I right till my finger down. Catch a cold, mama said, praise the Lord.
My name's Ronnie McGee. I've been a community radio presenter since 2009, and with that comes a wealth of experience and enjoyable experiences as well. I've been involved in radio since I was about 16, 17 years old back in Glasgow. I used to be able to go up to Radio Clyde, see all the jocks in action, see production work, and I was very fortunate to have been able to hang around there. My radio show currently at Pulse is basically a mix of brand new music along with some classic music but I like to feature all new tracks from unsigned people, and that can be from all over the UK, and mix it with classic tracks, which some of the artists now, they'll hear the song and then they'll have a classic track after it. Oh, it was great hearing my song. I know lots of great presenters on other community stations who feature like local music, who feature unsigned music. But I think mine is a bit unique because I fit in some of those classic tracks as well. And that's my unique selling point, I suppose. I am very fortunate that I have got lots of promotion companies that will send me material from all over the country. And I get artists, now Scottish artists, UK artists sending me material as well. And what I do, I listen to every track. I am literally getting about 200 tracks a week. So what I do is I get them all set up on my iTunes and I go through them all one by one. And it's a hard one, the criteria of whether I'm going to play it on the show or not. I guess I've got to like it, but I've got to feel that my listeners would like to hear it. We mentioned briefly about a show that I had on Irvine Beat FM when I was there. It was called Wednesday Night Sessions, and it was full of all unsigned music from all over the country, and we used to have artists come in. I'm a big fan of a band called Twin Hearts. They used to be Mechanical Smile. They're now called Dream Kids. And I had Murray and Don in the studio, and we're talking away. And I also got these sessions filmed as well. My good friend Peter Campbell would come in, similar setup I've got here, and he would film the sessions. And it was only when I was watching his filming back that night that Dawn, the singer and guitarist, was talking about her old band Mechanical Smile and how it came to an end. And when you watched the footage, it's on YouTube, Peter had really zoomed in on Dawn, and when she was talking about Mechanical Smile, you could hear the cracking in her voice and you could see almost a tear coming to her eyes. And that for me was just a wow moment.
I'm Sean. I play guitar.
I'm Gabriel. We're both the guitarists for the mix.
Me and Gabriel just kind of had the same music taste when we spoke together, but we didn't really know it until we started playing together in a music room in school. Because everybody else would just sit down at a table, and then a couple of the ones I wanted to go up and play would just go up to a wee music room, and Brown knows the teacher, so I got up to him so that they'd let you in the room over lunch, and it just kind of started there with different people.
I just messed about for ages and found a solid lineup. Just kept that. I kind of like the idea of being a pop band still, but I don't know, just keeping a bit of edge to it as well. I've still not found our niche yet.
No, I don't know if I will, but that's just fun, isn't it?
Still figuring it out.
A lot of other bands know they want to sound like. We strongly know what we don't want to sound like, which kind of makes us a little bit different.
I think it's important to have like what you don't want to sound like. I think that's just as important as knowing what you want to sound like.
Yeah.
So it sort of eliminates a lot of things and narrows it down for you. Last year we put on our own gig. It was like a free gig, just to launch our first single, and we thought that was like it kind of gave us an idea of who wanted to come and see us, and it was a few hundred people that came.
We
thought it was.
We felt we could only get 100 people in it, and then I put my dad on the door and fucking it just let people in, and it got to about 1:50, and it was like, right, the bar staff and the people that own it, whatever, want me to shut us, and I was like, fine, give us 10 more minutes, and we all went about and rounded everybody up that was outside, whatever, and snuck them in the back door and all that, and we ended up with like 200 people in it, just because it was a free gig. People didn't even like us that showed up, like faces that
I've not seen
you used to bully me for being a goth, and you're here at a free gig. But it was good to negotiate for something like that, because we're just like, to the bar staff, like, you'll make a lot of money for it, even though it's a free gig.
How do you approach the songwriting process as a band? Is there any themes or messages that you try to put across?
We'll come in with an idea, basically,
Aye.
into like a practice, we'll come into here.
But you can't force it, it just
Oh,
pure
no,
doesn't work.
it's like-
There's no real way to have a process, you know
It
what I
takes
mean?
us ages to like, do a song.
Aye.
It's like, it just, like, one of us comes in with like, one idea and we kind of like flesh out with everyone else. Like, instead of having like a full song.
We just try every idea possible, you know what I mean? Like, if you really have written it, then you
Aye,
kind of know.
if somebody comes in with an idea, like, we're not going to, like, if somebody doesn't like it, we'll just say we're not wanting to do that.
Aye,
We're
like
not-
you'll know because somebody will go quiet in a corner and you're like,
It's
oh,
usually me.
do you have an opinion on this? And then it's like, we don't like it at all. It's usually you because
Aye,
you
it's-
want to avoid pure everything.
Aye, but like, it's like, aye, it's kind of just like, I don't know, like, there's no glossing over it and like just carrying on if you don't want to. Like, if somebody says you don't like it, we'll just move on to the next thing. We're just doing it to enjoy it really just now because we know we're both 17,
Right.
so we're trying to have it to like, enjoy it as we are now. I mean, there's obviously a few venues and stuff that like to play like bars and stuff, but
Yeah.
we're not like, going to get there and be like, that's it, we're not going
Aye,
any
we made
further.
it. Nah.
Aye, like, we just want to take it as far as it can. I think we know the songs we can make and the songs we have like, I think they're good enough to, I don't know, I've got confidence in them anyway.
I like them.
Aye.
I think they're alright.
At the start, it's just, I mean, it took us ages to actually write a song. We spent like years just doing covers and stuff.
Aye.
Really, and it took us a while to find a vocalist as well. And Sean Paul.
Yeah,
And Sean Paul, like, when we first got him, like, it was like,
reluctant.
I was reluctant to let, and we had other people and stuff, and it was like, I don't know, it's hard finding the right people for it, but I know we've got it now.
Yeah.
But
Can't blame them, but because
I know,
it's a difficult thing.
thing to do.
Aye, it's
Like,
a
just
difficult thing to be vulnerable
going on
and let
stage,
yourself
aye, and
sing and go on stage
Yeah.
and stuff. But respect him for doing so, and he's a great singer.
aye, it's as if we've taken like 5 different people for 5 different bands, fire them all in this like, one band, and like just see what happens. Like we should all be in different bands, but it's somehow working in this one, like 5 different people.
A clusterfuck, yeah.
Aye, that's good though. It works out really well.
Probably about 2012, I paid for some photos for my son when he was born, a lot of money for some photos, and I started to think I could take better photos than that. Bought some decent photography equipment, spoke to a few musicians I knew. Before I knew it, I was taking photos. Before I knew it, I was getting invited to gigs. I just kept trying to refine my art and trying to get shots. The aim was probably, if I'm honest, to be good enough to get invited to my favourite artists' gigs, to take photos. That was the dream. I've had some of my favourite bands, Ocean Colour Scene, The Happy Mondays, Richard Ashcroft, were kind of the acts I was into. They used my photos, meeting other acts, The View, Jerry Cinnamon, The Uprising with Jerry, and yeah, it was all good. Loved it. I've always a big believer in trying to look for something different. Liam Gallagher's debut solo tour at the Barras, all the photographers, all the guys I know stood at one end of the stage, and I'd kind of looked at the stage setup and I kind of thought, I think he's going to come out and do something a wee bit different, point at this sign, and I stood at the opposite end. Sometimes you get nothing, but that particular night I got a shot, and I always like to kind of think I'm looking for something a wee bit different. If the pit's crowded and everybody's in the one shot, I generally think to myself, take a step back, breathe, and try and take in the moment. I always remember folk criticising Liam because he stood on stage still. And I always thought, why did Liam do that? And then I read a wee quote about Liam and he said he was actually just taking in the moment. So I try, and as crazy as it sounds, you only get sometimes one song in the pit. The majority of times it's 3. I try and just take myself out the moment and try and look for something that maybe somebody else isn't getting. Probably, if I'm honest, a couple of gigs or a couple of artists that I've captured that really resonated with me musically were Jerry Cinnamon. I was very fortunate to capture probably some of the iconic shots with him on Transmit 2018, 2019. A lot of them were made into big massive posters all over the city. A few shots that I got at The View over the years. The View, I kind of discovered live and fell in love with their music. Fantastic band. I don't think you get a better band live than The View, and certainly not in Scotland, but what a band. Fortunate enough to call Kyle a friend. I would say I'm friends with all the band, but some great images of The View, great images of Kyle that I'm proud of. I've been lucky enough to capture the Happy Mondays, who were one of the bands along with the Rosies that really got me right into music when I was a young lad. So it's a real honour that I've managed to build a relationship with the Mondays where I get to shoot them. Ocean Colour Scene, one of my favourite bands of all time. Lucky enough that they've used my photos. I always had a love of trying to capture the crowd in a shot, which is quite tricky because you've got to have the right pass to get to shoot the crowds. One of the first gigs I ever shot with a half decent camera, sneaked a camera into a rock gig by an American band called Ugly Kid Joe, famous for the Wayne's World tune, which was on the soundtrack Everything About You. And I took a few good shots of the crowd from up the back, doing a bit of engagement with the artist, which I thought were the coolest shots I'd captured that night. Said to my mate who was at the gig with me, and he said, "Baz, you're 10 years too late." And I was like, I don't know about that, but I then thought, well, I've got some decent shots. What do I do with them? Sent them onto the artist's Facebook page, and before I knew it, the singer of the band was using the photos, and he quoted throughout that year that they were his favourite images of the band that year. So wee bits like that give guys like me who want to capture the moment a wee bit of confidence, a wee bit of, well, I'm doing something here that somebody's valuing. Once you learn your craft in the pit, you're kind of anticipating there might be something going to happen when we hit this chorus, when we hit this middle A. And Miles Kane's an interesting one. You know you're going to get something from Miles Kane. Are you ready to capture the shot? He's going to jump in the air. Have you got your cameras on the right setting? Kasabian, another interesting one. And just trying to really position yourself to capture something like that, and kind of maybe having a connection and having a knowledge of a musician and maybe feeling it as well at the time. I generally try and feel it. Sometimes you watch the artist, you're listening to the crowd, even though you've got the earplugs in and you're shooting away, you're trying to pick up on it and get ready for something, you know. You're generally just trying to make the musician look good and look for the shot that's going to kind of portray the music and them as an artist. Jerry Cinnamon, 2018, Transmit. I'd seen Jerry coming up. I worked full-time in education, and I worked in quite a deprived area at the time, and all the young team were listening to his music, and I was picking up on it, pupils, and I thought, this was before Jerry had even really released his debut album. And I said to Jerry, when you play Transmit this year, I think it's going to blow. And Jerry was like, what do you mean, Basil, just to the same as last year? And I was like, I don't think so, mate. I think it's going to go to the next level.
I got into piano really young. My dad got me into lessons when I must have been about 7 years old. I persevered, did all the grades, as a lot of folk do when they start learning an instrument. Then I got gigging, I started writing. It was a pretty natural progression. I did musical theatre, so I was on the stage a lot as a kid, prancing about and singing musical songs and that. So I loved being on the stage, and I loved performing. And I knew, I think, quite early on that it was something that I had a real passion for. Everyone loved music in the family. My dad played piano. He learned from his parents and his grandmother, and then my granny pushed me in turn with that, and my other granddad loved Frank Sinatra. Music was always around. It's a big part, but I think it's a big part of a lot of people's lives. I think it's just if you want to take it into a career, it's up to you. But I couldn't really do much else, so it was it was the only option for me. But absolutely loved it. Loved being surrounded by music, and yeah, just really felt like I had a good connection with music. The first time I wrote a song, I had a gig. Must have been my first gig actually, solo. I think my first solo gig. I'd done a few duo gigs with pals doing covers, but this was my first gig as a solo artist. Had a loop pedal. I was doing the whole Ed Sheeran thing. He was big at the time. Had a loop pedal, the wee guitar, and I thought, well, I'm a set list full of covers, and I had to write an original song. So I bashed out this song in about 20 minutes, and I really enjoyed the feeling that I got when I sung it live, and being able to express yourself. It's so cliche, but you know, it is why you write songs. It's to get your stories out and just to express things that you maybe can't say as easily. And I loved it. I loved songwriting, and I've done it ever since.
Every time you turn away, I pray that in the morning you'll be by my side. Now there ain't another way. I'm holding on to yesterday, but we won't cry. Don't tell me more, darling, I'm happy with half of you. I'm on the floor.
I've got influences for writing music and recording, and then I've got influences for like performance. But some of my favourite artists, Bon Iver, my absolute favourite. Musically, I just love. I remember hearing the album 22 Million, and it just totally changed my view on music. But I think once I find something that I like, I stick to it and I'll put it on repeat, you know. And I'll just study it. I'll like listen to every wee bit and what are they doing there? How can I do that? Traditional singer-songwriters like Jackson Browne, Elton John, Bruce Springsteen, Carole King, you know, these people I listened to them growing up, and just from a songwriting aspect, you can't get much better, I don't think. And then performance-wise, Brandon Flowers from The Killers, I think he's the greatest frontman in the world. Springsteen as well, is just incredible live. It's all about the energy they've got on stage, and you're just totally captivated by the performance. So I try and take as many influences as I can. So back in 2019, I was involved with the BBC Radio Scotland Singer-Songwriter Award, and I was doing a few workshops with them. And at the time, I think I had a gig lined up supporting Callum Beattie, who I play for. And I was friends with him on Facebook, and I saw him put a post out prior to his tour, which was starting in about 2 days' time. In typical Beattie fashion, he was looking for a keys player based in Scotland. I was like, well, I could do that. So I dropped him a message. I think we met up the next day, learnt the set list overnight, and the day after that we were in Aberdeen or something. It's the first gig. Sold out tour, he'd sold out this run of dates. And it was fab, absolutely loved it. What a great experience. And that was my first real taste of session work. Really interesting, and I mean, I'm still playing with Callum now, which is 4 years later, so.
She's a diva, he's a cheater, and our hearts gone cold. Pick your poison, make some noise and run away.
I think my first real experience where I felt it was my music was going to see the Smiths in 1985. I think it was September, and my birthday was September the 1st, so I got a ticket with my birthday money, and supporting the Smiths that night with a band called James, who have since went on to become my favourite band ever, and I've followed them for about 40 years. I've never felt that feeling that for the first time when you experience it. It was just absolute euphoria, and it's stuck with me, you know, my whole life, and I'm constantly going to gigs trying to emulate that feeling again. I think especially if you go to see local bands and smaller bands, they're not all going to go on and be the next Beatles. So, but every now and again, you'll go to see something and it just gives you that same feeling, and that's an addiction almost. You know, you want that shared experience in that room with the people that's there, and obviously the bands as well. You know, when it works well for them, it works well for the crowd, and you know, collectively everybody enjoys it. I think for me growing up, you know, back in the 70s, there wasn't really such a thing as hip hop or anything like that. And I think for me, more recently, in the last 10 years especially, has been discovering some phenomenal hip hop acts that are about Glasgow. You know, and that came about through basically attending non-hip hop gigs and meeting people and making that connection. Then think, well, we'll go and investigate that, try it, see how it goes. And yeah, but the Glasgow music scene, you know, for the last 10 years, I think is as strong as it's ever been since, you know, I started going to gigs in the 1980s. For me, the festival season, that's what I like to do, is go and wander around the festival, discover bands that I've not heard, take people's recommendations while I'm on site about who they're going to see, and just go and investigate. And, you know, not everything's going to work for you, but it's nice when it does work, and you know, you get that shared experience with everybody. Probably more recently, and I think you might have actually been there, was Eden 2016, when the Yellow movement seemed to be in its absolute pomp, and everywhere across the festival site you were just seeing people wearing yellow t-shirts, and it was quite a sight, you know. And I think it just happened organically. And it was just a sensational collective of people coming together. And that'll stay with me for a long, long time. When you meet people at a festival or you meet people at a gig, you know, don't be afraid to say, oh, what's your contact details, whatever, and drop them a note, because, you know, equally, you'll maybe hear something that's going on that they won't know about, but they'll also hear things that's going on that you don't know about. So, you know, making connections, I think connections is definitely the way to stay informed. It's not a cheap sport, it's going to gigs. But no, in general terms, I think it's quite easy now, and I think it's easier than it used to be, because, you know, when I first started going to gigs, I used to have to go into Glasgow and queue up to buy a ticket. You know, I can do it from the comfort of my own house now, so, you know, before it was almost like an afternoon out to go and buy a ticket for a gig, never mind going to the gig itself. And I'm in a lot of different music groups, you know, whether that's band specific, whether it's the Glasgow music scene, whether it's the Manchester music scene, whatever, you know, it's, if you join these groups, you tend to find out in that particular genre exactly what's going on. And you also discover kind of new stuff as well that other people share that you've maybe not heard. If you're looking for nothing else other than just an experience, then, you know, just put yourself out there, make yourself available. You know, I mean, I remember about 3 years ago, Gordie Duncan, who's a phenomenal musician, Gordon had posted on social media, is anybody in Glasgow that's got a angle grinder? And I happened to be sitting 50 yards away from him in my car waiting on Susan finishing her work with an angle grinder. And he'd basically found his bike that he had been stolen 2 years previous, and it was chained to a fence. So I just happened to pop round and whatever. But wee things like that just, you know, make a difference, and people remember you from that.
Mother, sister, lover, I'm with you. All they wanna do is keep us apart. Mother, sister, lover, I'm with you. All they wanna do is keep us apart.
I have like probably the worst imposter syndrome, so I'm probably going to cringe like even just talking about stuff. I recently won an award in San Francisco, which was like the biggest thing for me, because it's always been somewhere I wanted to go. I've like literally written a song about wanting to go to San Francisco and just like float about and play music, so I think to win an award there was kind of crazy, but it doesn't feel like it's me. That's like someone else. To like sum up my music would be that it's like bluesy and gay. It's just very like old man kind of music, but with this sort of underlying voice of kind of queerness and me talking about my experiences as a woman as well. It's very inspired by sort of like 70s rock, kind of that sort of vibe of music. I think being a woman in music, especially in the genre that I'm in, makes it quite challenging to sort of gain that respect that I think maybe my peers who are cis men tend to be able to get more easily. Not that it just comes to them, but I think there is a bit more of this sort of bias in terms of almost having to prove myself a lot more as like a rock musician. Like anyone, I think the music industry can be such a challenging thing to break into, and trying to pave your way into the music industry while still remaining authentic to what you want to create can be really tricky. The sort of fan base that I have is, I mean, it's mainly like she, theys and gays, but we also have like a lot of men who just really want to support and be allies. But freedom belongs to you. Freedom belongs to you. And freedom belongs to you. One of my favourite things, like ever, I released my song Freedom Belongs to Him, and I got a message from someone saying that, like, it was someone who follows me, and they were saying that they had met women on a night out and they were in the smoking area and they were all like singing Freedom Belongs to Him together, and it was just like the coolest thing. One that sort of sticks out for me a lot is Lady Gaga. I find her very inspiring because she is such an advocate for things that are really important, and I think she definitely is that sort of person that a lot of young people need in their lives. Like, she stands a lot for trans rights, and she stands a lot for kind of embracing individuality and things like that, and I think she's very inspiring to me just in terms of, like, she just does what she wants and it's cool. Mick Jagger is like a big one, and like totally opposite ends, because the Rolling Stones aren't like known for feminism being like a big part of their music, but I love him as an artist. Same with David Byrne from Talking Heads. Having that sort of core self-belief that, like, no, I'm actually good at this, or I actually have something to say, is such a big thing. And I think a lot of people seem to mistake self-confidence for arrogance, and especially this is one thing with being a woman in music that I've noticed, is when I try to assert myself into a situation, a lot of the time that then gets posed as being a diva, instead of like, no, she actually just, she knows how she wants this done.
They took me in, don't know where I've been.
Ladies and gentlemen, all right across the Cape, please.
Never really been keen on the idea of being in the same place every week with my job, and that's what's always made it interesting, being a musician. But someone managed to convince me, and then I immediately kind of recognised that it was actually very enjoyable to do so. The nights that I've been doing, I've brought in an array of talent from all over the place. Being a touring musician myself, I've met people in different countries, and even said, oh, if you ever come to Scotland, come and play at my open mic, and that's happened. I think the furthest person came from Malaysia when he was on tour through the UK. So naturally, when you get someone like that bringing in their kind of cultural influences in music, they bring out a very different performance that most people are not used to. as well as that, it's also just really nice to see regular performers coming from, you know, a start-up background and developing their craft. And there's many examples of regular open mic performers that I can think of that just demonstrate their journey, and that's the most fulfilling part for me. With an open mic night in particular, you are going to get a very varied type of person that attends. Some people might be a little more shy or bashful, others might be a bit more straight to the point. But it's just a case of recognising that personality and doing your best to kind of work cohesively with that. I'm always happy to talk to anybody and hear their story, and that can result in someone feeling more comfortable to come up and perform on the stage. And equally, while doing that, it's finding the balance between over-encouraging and, you know, giving that person the space to make the decision of coming on stage. I've had people over the years that have came down for several weeks, if not close to months, and then eventually come to the stage. And it was just a case of allowing them to come to me first, and then just keep informing that this is a safe space, and a friendly environment, a community of people that are here to support each other. And I think once people kind of buy into that that vibe that you have at a night, it becomes easier to be comfortable. For a number of years recently, like, you know, I fell away from writing my own music because I was so busy with, like, you know, making money to pay the bills and play all the kind of cover gigs and organise events, etc. But now I'm finding a different balance after doing my Masters in Music Therapy. I now have that space to create my own music again, which is something I've just recently started to pursue. And again, it is just down to being diligent with time management.
Well, am I burning in the back of your mind? 'Cause girl, I can't get you out of mine. And well, I heard you say that you come home, babe.
I'm Mike Matheson, I'm the owner of Purple Orange Arts Venue. This is Scotty, right hand man, he does all the work. Scott Horsburgh, sorry. 10 years ago I had the music shop at the front, and I was teaching guitar for a living really at the time and fixing guitars up and stuff like that, and the lease on this building came available, so we took it over with the factor on starting a music venue. Took a couple of years to get up and running, obviously with the licence and stuff, which wasn't easy, but we eventually got it. A lot of our mates and all that were all musicians, and there wasn't really that many places to play back then. And then Scotty kind of came about a year after that, didn't he?
A couple of years after the start, aye. Every single week we have brand new singer-songwriters. Some of them it's their first time, some of them have been coming for a while. Well, like 10 years we've been here now, this is our 10-year anniversary. So some of them have been coming for 10 years and they're bringing their new material, and some people are just starting out and writing their first songs.
Sometimes we'll put a female night on, sometimes, you know, sometimes it'll just be maybe like a band that's maybe headlining, so what we'll do is we'll just kind of, to be honest, we'll really give anybody a show, even if it's somebody's first gig, we'll always give them like a wee kind of 20-minute kind of slot, you know, so it doesn't matter if they're experienced or if it's their first time. We'll put them on, and usually the guys that are the band that will be headlining, you know, and we always try and give these guys, well, what I've been doing the past good few months is the headline band take the door money. So, you know, so any support bands that come in, they see that, you know, so they think, you know what, we can play for an hour. See, the next time, you know, we'll try and bring 20 people, and, you know, so the more people they get into the door, you know, they get a chance of getting that door money, eh?
The amount of players, artists about here is phenomenal. There's hundreds of players, there's hundreds of artists about here, and we get most of them coming through at some point or another. How many talented people have been on that stage is scary, and not necessarily that you might have always heard of them. We've had some of them, but even the ones that you've never heard of, some guys just putting their heart on their sleeve on that stage, and you see some you hear some amazing songs and see some amazing players and singers and stuff like that. And every week we're kind of blown away with somebody.
I mean, we've been through it all in the years, you know, with the shutdown and stop the drums and go acoustic. But when we done that, doors opened for us.
Aye.
In the last few years, me and Scotty have got together and basically put a lot of kind of events on locally. The first bigger one that we done ourselves was out in the Armadale racetrack, just the next wee tune along. So we hired that out and basically done our own festival. What was it called again?
Ampfest.
And so I mean, it was a brilliant day. I think we maybe had 400 or 500 people there.
Aye.
And
for a first attempt, it was
as
pretty decent. We were quite
it was
pleased.
decent, Ken. And then like the next one there at the Regal, we done a 2-day event that day with 4 stages. So with a hip hop stage, with obviously the main stage for the bands, and with the grassroots nanny thing, and then the acoustic stage. That's where all mostly kind of youngsters during the day and that. So, but that just to give you an idea, like say, how people ken we're here and how people know. It's like when we put that up, that there was some slots available. I think within 2 days we had the 80 slots full. So that just shows you like how many kind of artists there is out there for this area. And so people know we're here and we know they're there.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of feedback about that because we are willing to put on somebody who's never played before, has not got a social media page. A lot of venues will say, oh, can maybe come back next year or something. We're like, no, see you Saturday.
Yep.
If you've got a guitar, come in.
Come in and try it, it'll build to that. You'll get to that eventually. And we've kind of built up as well to get our, like say, our big outdoor festival stuff. We worked with Party at the Palace again through the venue doing what we do. They asked for us to do the acoustic stage, so we started doing that, and we basically took this into a field.
Can you share any memorable or standout performances that you have had through the years?
Gone to things like say kind of Luke Gibson, and then like say Kyle Faulkner and that played as well, you know, and then with the guy for the Blue Tones, with Tom Hingley, again for the Spiral Carpets. Aziz was in recently. Aziz Ibrahim.
Aye, that was really good. That was a good night.
Aye, and then you're going back to maybe when Lewis Capaldi was 16, 17, Ken.
Yep.
So aye, a lot of memorable nights that way.
Even the ones that you've maybe not heard of yet, like Jasmine, for example, who's still coming up.
Some people live for fortune. Some people live just for the fame. Some people live for the power. And some people live just to play the game. And some
I've always kind of been in the arts since I can remember. I started off actually in musical theatre, and I was musical theatre trained until I was about 12. And then I got scouted for The Voice Kids, and I went through that whole process a few times, and that was kind of where I decided to merge from musical theatre into more commercial music. And then I just started doing gigs, and it progressed from there. Really for me, when I listen to a lot of different artists and a lot of different genres, which I think is very important for like a young artist. But when it comes to creating my own music, I don't like to stick with a particular genre, especially since I haven't released anything yet. I think it's important for me to try a lot of different genres, and it really just depends on the song a lot of the time as well. So I've done a bit of rock recently, a bit of blues, a bit more pop. I've even been rapping as well, which is a surprise to me.
How I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky.
I started writing when I was about 12, so I'm 19 now, I'm nearly 20 as well, which is very scary. So it's been doing it for a good few years. And when it comes to writing, really I start with lyrics. It's my main thing. I love writing lyrics. I love telling a story with a song as well. It depends really all the time. I like to be quite creative in different ways I can write and not stick to a specific structure. So yeah, a bit of everything. I like to see how other artists write as well. I would definitely say when I first started playing festivals, that was quite a big point for me. You know, being around other artists that are also playing and seeing people on the main stage and the breakthrough stages and working my way up to those stages was quite a big moment. You know, I think being young and being in the UK as well is very populated with artists and bands, and everyone wants to become a musician. So finding your way in that sea of people is quite a challenge. But I'd say, you know, keeping that drive up and having that determination within myself and want to do it for myself rather than for other people, that really keeps me going. And any challenges that I do overcome or come against, that drive in me really does keep me going and overcomes them.
I swam across, I jumped across for you. Oh, what a thing to do. 'Cause you were all yellow. I drew a line for you.
I'd say when I first started more commercial music, I was more into soul and blues, so I really looked up to Etta James and Aretha Franklin and Tina Turner and all them. And then as well, Queen is my favourite band, so I do look up to Freddie Mercury a lot, and you know, Stevie Nicks. And then there's some other artists, I'm not going to say smaller artists because they're not, but the likes of Georgia Smith and Olivia Dean as well. And I've also got a friend who does music, his name's Luke Lavolpe, which I got the chance to support him at some of his shows recently. I definitely idolise him in a way as well. It's just, I think I was made to do it in a way. I'm not very good at anything else, so music is my path, and that's the path I'm staying on, yeah. I'd say definitely in this day and age, it's very easy to lose yourself, especially when you're a musician, and especially when you're a woman as well. You know, it's a very male-dominated industry. So I try to stay very true to myself, but also I do need to be very careful of what I say on the internet and what I post on the internet, because, you know, even though it's not great, but I am going to get more backlash as a woman rather than a man. I think personally I've seen it to happen to other people. So when it comes to, you know, personal views, political views, I do keep them behind. And don't let it get too involved with my music. I do like to make it all about the music and all about, you know, sharing this story with other people. My mum's been my biggest mentor, and, you know, she's my absolute rock throughout everything. I wouldn't quite say momager, but she's definitely, you know, pointing me in the right direction. She knows nothing about music as well, so when I kind of said, you know, I want to be a musician, she was the best mother and did all the research. I know she stays up very late at night, you know, researching things for me and finding gigs and helping me with like festivals. And when bookings come in, she's like, right, Jasmine, you need to answer this person back, get this in the diary and all that. So I'd say definitely my mum has been my biggest supporter throughout, which I'm very, very grateful for as well.
What advice would you give to other artists trying to enter this industry?
Do it. I would say do it. If you have the passion for it, if you have the drive for it, I would say definitely do it. It is a great career to have, and it's very fulfilling. You know, after every gig that I do, after every festival I play, even after like every post or cover that I put up on social media, that feedback that you get does really drive you to keep going. So I would say do it. Definitely 100%.
You're the tourist in my walls that I made a bed for, forgetting that you
I catch you stuck in my fence last night. I idolized you with arts in the holes. You prefer to buy the postcard, taking pictures on your holiday, picking wire out of your palms. The signs were there, too deep in prayer.
Picture of you distracting me, so everything's clear, making the night dream flickers. The message you said you'd come in a haze, I get there. Are you saying love was enough? All we need is just think of all the things we could discover. Is there something that I've missed? No,